What if I told you that the greatest minds in history didn't succeed because nothing ever went wrong, but because they learned to see everything that happened as working in their favor? What if that same power was already inside you, waiting to be claimed? Good evening. Tonight, I want to talk with you about one of the most powerful ideas you'll ever encounter. An idea so simple that most people overlook it, and so profound that it can change the entire trajectory of your life. Here it is: act as if everything always works in your favor. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Bad things happen. People lose jobs. Relationships end. Plans fall apart. And you're absolutely right. Life is unpredictable. But here's the truth that separates those who succeed from those who struggle. It's not what happens to you that matters. It's how you interpret what happens to you. Let me say that again, because this is the hinge upon which everything turns. It's not what happens to you that matters. It's how you interpret what happens to you. You see, the event itself is neutral. It simply is. But the meaning you attach to that event, the story you tell yourself about it, that's where your power lies. And the most successful people, the happiest people, the people who seem to have life figured out, they've all discovered this secret. They've trained themselves to see everything as working in their favor. Think about it. Two people lose their jobs on the same day. One goes home defeated, convinced the world is against them, that they'll never find something better. The other goes home and thinks, this is exactly what I needed. I was stuck. Now I'm free to find something that truly fits me. Same event, two entirely different interpretations. And I promise you, those two interpretations will lead to two entirely different lives. The first person will approach their job search with doubt and fear. They'll settle for the first thing that comes along, grateful just to have something. The second person will approach their search with confidence and purpose. They'll hold out for the right opportunity, and more often than not, they'll find it because they're expecting to find it. You see, when you act as if everything works in your favor, you're not denying reality. You're not pretending that challenges don't exist. You're simply choosing to look at those challenges through a different lens, a lens of possibility instead of limitation. I've studied successful people for decades, and here's what I've found: nearly every great achievement was preceded by what looked like a setback. Nearly every breakthrough came after what seemed like a breakdown. Thomas Edison didn't fail 10,000 times. He found 10,000 ways that didn't work, and each one brought him closer to the one that did. He acted as if every experiment was working in his favor because it was. Each failure was simply information, a stepping stone, a necessary part of the process. When you adopt this mindset, when you truly believe that everything is working for you, you stop being derailed by temporary setbacks. You stop interpreting closed doors as rejection and start seeing them as redirection. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this preparing me for? Now, here's where this gets really interesting. When you act as if everything works in your favor, something remarkable happens. The universe begins to respond to your attitude. I'm not talking about magic. I'm talking about psychology. I'm talking about the reticular activating system in your brain, the filter that determines what you notice and what you ignore. When you expect things to work out, your mind automatically begins looking for evidence to support that belief. You start noticing opportunities you would have missed. You start attracting people who can help you. You start making decisions from a place of confidence instead of fear. And confidence, my friend, is magnetic. People want to do business with confident people. They want to invest in confident people. They want to follow confident people. And confidence doesn't come from having everything go right. It comes from believing that whatever happens, you'll find a way to make it work in your favor. Let me give you the quote I want you to remember from tonight's talk. Write this down. Put it somewhere you'll see it every single day. We become what we think about. When you think everything works in your favor, you begin to act like someone for whom everything works. And that changes everything. That's it. That's the secret. You become what you think about most of the time. If you spend your days worrying about what might go wrong, you'll live a cautious, limited life. But if you spend your days expecting things to work out, believing in your ability to turn every situation to your advantage, you'll live a bold, expansive life. And here's the beautiful part. This isn't about being delusional or naive. This is about being strategic. Because when you act as if everything works in your favor, You're putting yourself in the best possible position to make it work in your favor. So how do you do this? How do you start living this way? It begins with a decision, not a wish, not a hope. A decision. Decide right now that from this moment forward, you're going to interpret everything that happens to you as working in your favor, not some things. Not just the good things. Everything. Lost a client. Good. Now you have time to find a better one. Someone criticized your work. Excellent. Now you know exactly what to improve. Plans fell through. Perfect. Now you're free to discover something you never would have found if everything had gone according to plan. Start practicing this today. When something unexpected happens, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, how might this be working in my favor? What opportunity is hidden in this situation? At first, it might feel forced. You might not believe your own answers. That's okay. Keep doing it anyway, because here's what happens over time. This practice rewrites the programming in your mind. It becomes your default way of thinking. And when that happens, you'll stop acting as if everything works in your favor. You'll know it does. Here's what I want you to do. Starting tomorrow morning, I want you to live one full day as if you are absolutely certain that everything, and I mean everything, is conspiring to help you succeed. Walk into that meeting as if you've already won. Have that difficult conversation as if you know it will lead to something better. Face the challenge as if it's exactly what you need to grow into the person you're meant to become. And at the end of the day, write down what happened. Notice how differently you felt. Notice how differently people responded to you. Notice the opportunities that appeared simply because you were looking for them. Then do it again the next day and the next, until it's no longer an act, it's who you are. Let me tell you about two men I once knew. Both worked at the same factory. Both had been there for 15 years. And on the same gray Tuesday morning, both were called into the manager's office and told their positions were being eliminated. The first man walked out of that office with his head down, his shoulders slumped. By the time he reached his car, he'd already decided what this meant. He was too old to start over. The economy was terrible. Companies didn't want to train someone his age. He'd probably have to take a pay cut if he could find anything at all. His wife would be disappointed. His kids would worry. This was, without question, the worst thing that could have happened to him. The second man walked out of that same office, stood in the parking lot for a moment, and took a deep breath. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't have another job lined up. He didn't have all the answers. But as he stood there, he realized something important. He could choose what this moment meant. Now here's where most people get confused. They think the event itself carries meaning, that being laid off is inherently bad, that losing something is automatically a loss, that change is naturally frightening. But that's not how reality works. The event, any event, is just a fact. It's what happened, nothing more, nothing less. The meaning, that comes from you. Think about this carefully. The same event, losing a job, existed in both men's lives, but in one man's mind it became a disaster. In the other's mind it became an opening, same fact. Different interpretation. And those interpretations, they created two entirely different realities. The first man spent 6 months sending out half-hearted applications, apologizing in interviews for his age, accepting rejection as confirmation of what he already believed. He eventually took a position making less money, doing work he didn't enjoy, convinced he was lucky to get even that. The second man spent 2 weeks thinking clearly about what he really wanted. He realized he'd been unhappy at that factory for years but had been too comfortable to leave. He reached out to former colleagues. He asked questions. He explored. Within 8 weeks, he'd found a position that paid 20% more, doing work he actually found meaningful. And for the rest of his life, he looked back at that Tuesday morning as one of the best things that ever happened to him. You see, the event didn't determine their futures. Their interpretation of the event determined their futures. And here's the liberating truth. You have complete control over your interpretations. Not over what happens, but over what you decide it means. That's your power. That's your freedom. And it's available to you in every single moment. The world you see isn't the world that is. It's the world you've decided it is. Change your interpretation, and you change everything. There's a moment that comes to all of us. A moment when the door we've been pushing on suddenly slams shut in our face. Maybe it's the business deal that falls through at the last minute. Maybe it's the relationship that ends just when you thought it was going somewhere. Maybe it's the opportunity you were counting on that goes to someone else. And in that moment, something inside us wants to take it personally. We want to believe we weren't good enough, smart enough, ready enough. We start to question everything. We wonder if we should have done something differently. We lie awake at night replaying every conversation, every decision, looking for where we went wrong. But before you go down that road, before you let that closed door convince you that you failed, I want you to consider something. What if that door didn't close because you weren't meant to succeed? What if it closed because you were meant to succeed somewhere else, somewhere better, somewhere you couldn't even see while you were focused on that one particular door? Now, I'm not asking you to blindly accept every setback with a smile. I'm asking you to consider a different possibility. Because here's what I've observed in 30 years of studying successful people. The biggest breakthroughs in their lives almost always came after something they wanted didn't work out. The job they didn't get led them to start their own company. The investor who said no protected them from a partnership that would have been disastrous. The relationship that ended made room for the person they were truly meant to be with. The manuscript that got rejected by 20 publishers eventually found the one publisher who understood its value and turned it into a bestseller. You see, when a door closes, it's not the universe saying, "You're not good enough." It's the universe saying, "Not that way. This way." It's a course correction. It's a redirection towards something that actually aligns with where you're supposed to be going. Think about a river flowing downstream. When it encounters a boulder, it doesn't stop. It doesn't turn back. It doesn't interpret the boulder as a sign that it should give up on reaching the ocean. It simply flows around it. The boulder isn't blocking the river, it's shaping its path. And sometimes that redirection leads to something more beautiful than the original course ever would have been. The same is true for you. Every obstacle you face is shaping your path. Every closed door is protecting you from something or pointing you towards something better. Every no you receive is clearing the way for the right yes. And here's the remarkable part. Once you stop interpreting obstacles as rejections and start seeing them as redirections, you stop wasting energy on bitterness and disappointment. You start moving faster. You start trusting the process. You start looking for the new door instead of mourning the closed one. The path to your goal isn't a straight line. It never was. Turn, every detour, every unexpected redirect, it's all taking you exactly where you need to go. Tichi universe respodas tell you are doananata ud. Picture yourself walking into a room full of strangers. Your palms are slightly damp. Your mind is racing with thoughts. What if nobody wants to talk to me? What if I say something stupid? What if I don't fit in here? You stand near the wall, arms crossed, avoiding eye contact. And sure enough, the evening passes and nobody approaches you. You leave thinking, "See, I knew this would happen. Nobody ever wants to talk to me." Now, let me ask you something. Did those people avoid you because of who you are? Or did they avoid you because of the signal you were sending? Here's something most people never stop to consider. The world around you is constantly picking up on your attitude. Not the attitude you claim to have, but the one you're actually broadcasting. And it responds accordingly. When you walk into that same room expecting rejection, your body language changes. Your face changes. Your energy changes. And people, whether they realize it or not, pick up on that energy and respond to it. They sense you don't want to be approached, so they don't approach. They sense your discomfort, so they feel uncomfortable around you. Your expectation of rejection literally creates the rejection you feared. But here's where it gets interesting. Imagine walking into that same room with a different attitude, not arrogant, not fake, just genuinely expecting that people will be glad to meet you. You smile easily, you make eye contact, you move through the room as if you belong there. And what happens? People approach you. Conversations start naturally. The evening becomes enjoyable, not because the people changed, but because you changed. The room didn't change. The people didn't change. Your attitude changed. And the universe, the people, the circumstances, the opportunities around you responded to that change. This isn't mysticism. This is how human beings work. When you genuinely expect things to work out, you show up differently. You speak differently. You make decisions differently. You notice different things. And all of that creates different results. Think about someone looking for a job while believing, nobody's hiring people like me. They send out applications half-heartedly. They walk into interviews apologetically. They accept the first lowball offer they get because they're grateful anyone said yes. Their belief that the job market is against them creates behavior that proves their belief correct. Now think about someone looking for a job while believing, the right opportunity is out there, and I'm going to find it. They research companies carefully. They walk into interviews as equals, not beggars. They ask good questions. They negotiate confidently. And more often than not, they get better offers, not because they're more qualified, but because their attitude opened doors the first person never even saw. Your dominant attitude is like a radio signal you're constantly broadcasting. And the universe, the people, the opportunities, the circumstances around you, tunes into that signal and sends back matching frequencies. Expect everything to work against you, and you'll find evidence everywhere. Expect everything to work for you, and you'll find that evidence instead. Same universe, different signal, different results. The choice of what you broadcast is yours. There's a question that haunts most people their entire lives. They stand at the edge of their dreams, looking out at everything they want to accomplish, and they ask themselves, but how can I be confident when I haven't succeeded yet? How can I believe in myself when I have no proof? It's a reasonable question. It makes logical sense. We're taught that confidence comes from winning, that you earn the right to believe in yourself after you've proven yourself. First you succeed, then you get to feel certain. That's the order, right? And so people wait. They wait for evidence. They wait for someone else to believe in them first. They wait for conditions to be perfect. They wait for a guarantee. They stand on the shoreline, telling themselves they'll jump in once they're certain they can swim. But here's what they don't understand. Here's what changes everything once you grasp it. The people who achieve remarkable things don't wait for proof before they believe. They believe first, and that belief creates the proof. Certainty doesn't follow success. Certainty precedes success. It's the cause, not the effect. Think about every person who's ever built something significant. Did they wait until they had evidence that their idea would work? No. They decided it would work, and then they acted from that decision. The Wright brothers didn't wait for proof that humans could fly. They were certain it was possible before anyone else believed it. Walt Disney didn't wait for evidence that a cartoon mouse could build an empire. He acted with certainty long before the world caught up. Here's why this matters so much. Your level of certainty determines your level of action. When you're uncertain, you hesitate. You hedge your bets. You do things halfway. You keep one foot out the door, ready to retreat at the first sign of difficulty. And that tentative, uncertain energy, it produces tentative, uncertain results. But when you're certain, when you've decided with complete conviction that what you're pursuing will work out, you act differently. You commit fully. You persist longer. You invest more deeply. You speak with conviction. You make decisions quickly. And all of that creates momentum. It creates results. It creates the very success you were certain would come. The certainty came first. The success followed. Now you might be thinking, but Earl, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm certain about something and it doesn't work out? And here's the beautiful truth, even if the specific outcome doesn't happen exactly as you envisioned, the person who acted with certainty will have gone further and learned more than the person who waited for proof. Because here's what certainty really is. It's not a guarantee that everything will go perfectly. It's a decision that no matter what happens, you'll find a way to make it work in your favor. You don't need proof to be certain. You need certainty to create proof. Stop waiting for permission to believe in yourself. Stop waiting for evidence to feel confident. Decide now, act as if success is inevitable, and watch how quickly the world rearranges itself to match your conviction. Yo bikumamo het yu tuika biyut. There's a man who wakes up every morning and immediately starts thinking about everything that could go wrong. The traffic will be terrible. His boss will be in a bad mood. That project will probably fail. Nobody appreciates his work anyway. By the time he walks out his front door, he's already lived through a dozen small disasters, none of which have actually happened yet. And here's the strange part, by the end of the day, his predictions often come true. The day was difficult. People were irritating. Nothing seemed to go right. And he goes to bed thinking, see, I knew it would be like this. That's just how life is. But is it? Or has he spent so much time thinking about problems that he's actually become a person who creates them? Now, before you dismiss this as too simple, let me tell you about a study that was done years ago. Researchers took two groups of basketball players who'd never practiced free throws. The first group practiced shooting free throws physically for 20 minutes every day. The second group didn't touch a basketball. They simply sat quietly and imagined making perfect free throws for 20 minutes every day. After 30 days, both groups were tested. The group that practiced physically improved by 24%. But here's what's remarkable: the group that only practiced mentally, who only thought about making perfect shots, improved by 23%, almost the same result, from thinking alone. Your mind doesn't know the difference between what you vividly imagine and what you actually experience. When you spend your days thinking about failure, your mind accepts that as your reality and begins to shape your behavior accordingly. When you spend your days thinking about success, your mind accepts that as your reality and shapes your behavior to match. Think about what you've been thinking about most this past week. Have you been replaying past mistakes? Have you been rehearsing worst-case scenarios? Have you been focusing on everything that's wrong, everything that's lacking, everything that isn't working? Because if you have, you're not just passively observing your life, you're actively constructing it. Every thought is like a seed planted in the garden of your mind, and whatever you plant most consistently is what grows. The person who constantly thinks about debt becomes more indebted, not because of bad luck, but because their mind is focused on scarcity, and they make decisions from that place. The person who thinks about health and vitality becomes healthier, not because of magic, but because their mind naturally gravitates toward choices that support that vision. You're not a victim of your thoughts. You're the thinker of your thoughts. And that means you can change them. Starting today, you can decide what gets to occupy the prime real estate of your mind. You can choose to think about the person you're becoming instead of the person you've been. You can focus on solutions instead of problems. You can replay your successes instead of your failures. Because here's the truth that will set you free: you don't become what you want. You don't become what you wish for. You become what you think about most of the time. Plant better thoughts. Grow a better life. It's that simple. And it's that powerful. There's a woman I heard about who spent 3 years trying to start her business. 3 years of getting ready. 3 years of reading books, taking courses, attending seminars, refining her idea, waiting for the perfect moment. She told herself she needed more preparation, more knowledge, more certainty. She told herself she'd start when she'd felt truly ready. But every night she'd lie awake wondering why nothing was changing. Why, despite all her learning and planning, she was still in the same place she'd been 3 years ago. She was drowning in information but starving for transformation. And the harder she tried to prepare, the further away her dreams seemed to drift. Then one Tuesday morning, something shifted. She didn't learn anything new. She didn't get any external sign. She didn't suddenly acquire skills she didn't have the day before. She simply made a decision. Not a wish. Not a someday I will. A decision. I am doing this, starting today, no matter what. And here's what happened. Within 6 months, her business was generating income. Within a year, she'd replaced her salary. Within 2 years, she'd built something she'd been preparing to build for 3 years, except now it was real, not theoretical. What changed? Not her circumstances, not her knowledge, not her resources. What changed was the decision. And that decision changed everything. You see, most people don't realize that there's a world of difference between wanting something and deciding on something. Wanting is passive. It's standing on the sidelines hoping things will work out. It's keeping your options open. It's hedging your bets. Wanting says, I'd like that to happen. Deciding says, this is happening. I'm all in. When you merely want something, you take tentative steps. You try things to see if they work. You give yourself escape routes. You tell yourself you'll give it a shot. And if it doesn't work out quickly, you'll try something else. And because you're not truly committed, you give up at the first real obstacle. The wanting was never strong enough to carry you through difficulty. But when you decide, when you truly, completely, irreversibly decide, everything shifts. Your brain stops looking for ways out and starts looking for ways through. Your energy focuses. Your actions align. You stop dabbling and start building. Doors that were invisible suddenly appear, not because they weren't there before, but because now you're actually looking for them. A decision is a line in the sand. It's the moment you stop negotiating with yourself. Becomes absolutely. It's when I hope becomes I will. And the moment you cross that line, you become a different person, a person who acts with purpose instead of hesitation. Everything you want is on the other side of a real decision. Not a wish, not a plan, not preparation. A decision. So ask yourself, what have you been wanting that you haven't decided on? What dream have you been entertaining but not committing to? Make the decision today, right now, and watch everything change, because you changed first. You were not put on this earth to live a life of doubt and limitation. You were put here to grow, to create, to contribute, to become the highest version of yourself. And the fastest way to get there is to start living as if the entire universe is on your side. Because it is, if you decide it is. Everything that happens to you from this point forward can work in your favor. The only question is, will you let it? This is Earl Nightingale. Until next time, remember, you become what you think about. Make it a great day by deciding it already is.